Okay, so this morning we're going to work strictly off the cuff, and we're going to talk about mitosis and meiosis. So this image will be available. You should copy it into your notebook. I have an image of it for you to use in your notebook. So let's talk about mitosis first, all right? So we know that sex cells are gametes. This is just a technical term for all sex cells. This includes the sperm and the egg. So the gametes are sperm and egg, and of course there's no way around talking about those, so even if you're going to snicker a little bit, go ahead. So when the sperm and the egg get together, that's called fertilization. The sperm fertilizes the egg. Now again, we're going to be talking all about human reproduction here, but this applies to all mammals and pretty much all animals that give live birth or even lay eggs. So the sperm and the egg get together, that's fertilization, and they form a zygote. Now whether or not it's female or male, or what kind of characteristics it has, all come from the chromosomes. The chromosomes, remember, are bundles of DNA. These bundles of DNA sort of combine together to give the organism its characteristics. And this constructs a new genetically unique organism, all right? Everything that happens from here to here uses mitosis. Mitosis is just when one cell makes two. So one cell splits and makes two. And we're going to go into the details of mitosis next week. So these are all pretty much genetically the same. And of course, there's other things going on with the DNA, because the DNA has to tell these cells where to go and what kind of cell they're going to be, whether they're going to be a skin cell or an eye cell or a brain cell or a bone cell or whatever. So all of this stuff comes from the DNA, and it all uses mitosis, where one cell divides and becomes two cells. And of course that happens over and over and over again. And of course the DNA is telling which cells to be what kind of cells they're going to be. So there's a lot more going on here, but for just our purposes, we're just going to say that all of this stuff basically involves mitosis. One cell makes two. Okay, so all the inheritance that you get come from the gametes that get together and form the zygote. And of course, that's what tells this genetically unique organism what it's going to look like. So everything that has to do with inheritance comes from the gametes, all right? Now, but these guys, these gametes, they are formed by a totally different, well, not totally different, but a different set of rules and a different type of cell reproduction. And that's called meiosis. So the gametes form from a process called meiosis. And meiosis has one cell, and of course, that cell will divide and make two cells. Now, these two cells that it makes have all 46 chromosomes of either the male or the female, the mother or the father, one of the two parents. Now, when those two cells will then divide again and create four, and these are all called daughter cells, these four daughter cells. So these one cell makes two, and then those two cells make two each. And now these last four cells, they only have half of the chromosomes of the original one. So this one splits and it becomes two, which again have both of are pretty much genetically the same as these. And then when they split apart, the chromosomes are split so that you have half the chromosomes in each of these. And these can divide up in different ways, and we'll talk about that. We're going to go into a lot of details. There's several steps involved in the meiosis process. But all four of these daughter cells here have half the chromosomes of the original. And that's the important point of meiosis. So mitosis is one cell makes two, and all those cells tend to be identical to each other, so that your skin cells are always going to create new skin cells. Brain cells are going to create new brain cells, new bone cells, et cetera, But this meiosis part, and it's a little bit more complex, but it's very similar insofar as we got one cell that makes two, and then those two cells split into two other cells that split the chromosomes apart and divide the chromosomes between the two daughter cells that are made from these two cells. So you have this form of mitosis, which creates two cells, and that's called meiosis 1. And then these two cells split in to make 2 more cells, which have half the number of chromosomes. So basically you have 1 cell that turns into 4 cells, 4 gametes, and this only occurs to gametes. These are only the sex cells that divide this way. So when you're creating sex cells within your body, they split up and they make 4 at a time, and these 4 have a different chromosome. Well, they have different chromosomes because they do some trading, and then we'll talk about that again later when we get into meiosis. But there's you have 4 basically unique sex cells that can be combined with other sex cells to form a new cell that will be fertilized or will do the fertilization later on. So that's how the difference between mitosis and meiosis and heredity, those are the links between those two. So all the inheritance comes from the gametes, which form together, get fertilized to form a zygote. You get chromosomes from those zygotes that combine together to give a genetically unique individual. And of course, those gametes are formed by this process called meiosis. And meiosis basically takes 1 cell and creates 4 daughter cells, all with half the number of chromosomes as the original. All right? So those are how those things are all linked. And we're going to go into more detail about these 2 processes next week. But I just wanted to give you guys the highlights of it so you have an idea of when we start talking about mitosis and meiosis, and later on when we start talking about heredity, it'll all be a little bit clearer. Okay? So that's the basics of it. There's a quizzes assignment that's available down the page on this haiku page. So go down there and look at the quizzes and go through that, because it will talk about some of the stuff that we dealt with yesterday in the Quizlet review, the study review for the terms. And of course, in that thing, we talked about meiosis and stuff like that. So now you have the basics of meiosis and what a zygote is and what gametes are. All right, there you go.